Hello everybody.
Hi!
Welcome to the second edition of our 360 video. We're not on our rooftop this time.
Nope.
We're somewhere a little different. We're at a nearby graveyard. In fact, the closest graveyard to where we live. What's the name of it again?
Most Holy Trinity Cemetery.
Most Holy Trinity Cemetery.
It's just a couple blocks from where we live on Central and what's the cross street?
Central and...
Chauncey?
I guess so, yeah, Chauncey.
Yeah, just under the train tracks.
Yeah.
As you can see in here, it's right next to the Wilson L train.
The Wilson L train is our stop, so...
There's a lot of birds out right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice here.
I wonder if you can hear the birds.
Maybe a little bit. You know, we're continuing to iterate on what this thing looks like and what it will look like when we ultimately do the walk. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm testing it out. We'll see if it works.
Yeah.
I think it will.
But
I hope it works because this is such a cool cemetery. It'll be nice to show it.
yeah.
It's cool and weird and small and like, I don't know. I feel like it's not one that many people probably know exists. We're right next to Evergreen Cemetery, which I feel like is, people know what that is.
Yeah.
Because it's much bigger. Yeah.
And this is kind of an eastern clump of, or an eastern clump of cemetery that makes up the larger like Central Queens Cemetery area, which we're going to be doing a walk eventually on, where we visit like 8 cemeteries in one day. But yeah, there's a lot of graveyards out in this general area. Would this be a good
time for me to tell you something about those graveyards?
I think it might be because she picked up the book.
So, since you're talking about this clump, it's actually referred to as Cemetery Belt.
Okay. And
it runs all the way along the border of Brooklyn and Queens.
Oh,
Did you know that?
I don't think so.
I didn't know that until last night. I did some research. I thought it was just like over here in our area because we've been looking at that a lot. But I guess it runs all the way around the border of Brooklyn and Queens. And it has a couple of reasons. So there was a cholera epidemic in like the 1840s, and there were Manhattan land shortages, which pushed people that were dying of cholera to be buried out in like the other boroughs. In 1847, a Rural Cemeteries Act was passed, and what that did was it allowed land to be bought in rural areas. It could be bought tax exempt if it was going to have a cemetery built on it. And at the time, this area of Brooklyn and Queens was very rural. And it was also not useful for farmland because it was very rocky and kind of a little hilly, but it would make a perfect cemetery because it had these small vistas, and people were really excited to spend their time in cemeteries at that point in time. Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn actually had, it rivaled Niagara Falls for most tourism every year.
Wow.
Yeah. Also part of the 1847 Rural Cemeteries Act, it put a limit on how much land one institution could buy for cemetery use in each county. And so to circumvent that, institutions would buy the max amount of land in Kings County, which is Brooklyn, and in Queens County, which is Queens, but along the border so that they could still stretch their cemetery out and be double the size that was actually allotted for each county.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, but people were circumventing the laws even back then.
Even then.
Even then. It's the first fun fact of the day.
Good job. And it's interesting that it's interesting that it was started around cholera, and we're here for the coronavirus. They're both, epidemic, pandemic things.
Yeah, would you consider cholera a pandemic? It was definitely an epidemic.
I don't know if it's in the true definition a pandemic or not.
But
it might just be an epidemic.
Fairly similar.
I have seen some charts that compared the deaths of cholera to more contemporary pandemics.
Oh, interesting.
But I'm not sure if it classifies.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm looking forward to more of your facts in that little book there.
Yeah, I'm excited to share them.
Yeah. Why don't we talk a little bit about our clothes? Because we did that
Okay.
last week,
Yeah,
and
let's do
we
that.
can continue to do that. You want to go first?
Oh, I'll go first.
Okay.
So I'll start with my shoes and I'll work my way up.
Okay.
So my shoes are from Beacon's Closet. I bought them a year ago. I was looking for shoes and I found some.
Yeah.
That's that. They're my like 70s rock star shoes. And then my pants are from a company called Ace and Jig, which I've done some work for, and they're like a local, well, they're actually half local, half on the other side of the country. They're based in Brooklyn and Portland, Oregon. But it's owned by just like these two really nice ladies, and then they employ, I think, like 15 women at this point. It's just like a great group of people, and they make all their fabrics in India, and then they just have like basic, kind of like big boxy, comfy clothes that they make out of them. So this shirt, I got my freshman year in college. It was the summer after my freshman year, actually. I was living with this girl named Anna who was working as an intern at Teen Vogue, and she would like get clothes. Like they'd give her clothes from like the photo closet. And this is a Rodarte for Target. And I remember being like, oh my God, a designer Rodarte shirt, cool, I want it. But it's Rodarte for Target, which is funny. But it's still it's like cool.
Yeah.
And I've had it for, I mean, that would have been like 2009,
Yeah.
I guess, that summer. So I've had it for over 10 years. And it's held up just fine. And then underneath it, I have this black velvet turtleneck. It's short sleeves. And it's something I looked for a long time, and then finally found it at thrift store after like a couple years of searching, like casual searching. And then my jacket was my grandmother's. It's a suede, it's a light blue suede jacket.
How long did she have that for?
Honestly, I don't know. She gave it to me like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But I don't know how long she had it for. I think she got it not that long before. It's
Yeah.
not like, it's not old.
Yeah.
It's like kind of newish. Like less than 10 years old, I'd say.
Yeah.
But she just wasn't really wearing it.
Did you wear it because I was wearing this?
Well, I noticed that you were wearing a jacket and that I should wear a jacket. And I was gonna wear this black velvet jacket that I wear sometimes. But then I felt like that was a little too dark because it's such a nice sunny day.
Yeah.
And then I pulled out a jean jacket and I felt like it was a little like clashed too much with like the vibe.
Yeah.
And then I pulled this out and I was like, oh, it's also nice that Mike's wearing suede. So like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes and no.
Yeah. Well, this is my jacket.
Yeah, tell me about your jacket.
We're a couple of Patrick Swayze's over here. This jacket I got actually at Urban Outfitters. I think this is the only thing I've ever purchased at Urban Outfitters.
Really?
Yeah. It's also the only time I've ever been in an Urban Outfitters, which may sound silly, but at the same time, I don't know. I just never been in one.
Why did you do it?
Why
did you do that?
I thought, I've never been in an Urban Outfitters. Let me go in there.
Yeah.
And this was on sale, so I got it. And I like the idea that at least I had something from that era and from that kind of, it's a very peculiar area to go shopping and to be there. I don't know if you ever walked in Broadways in the 500s, and like pretty much, 3 to 4 streets between Houston and Canal is just like an alley on Broadway of these like big flagship stores. And when I first started working at Avalanche, there were like periodic delis and like actual places that you could eat and like serve, that serve a function to the people that work there. But by the time I started working there in 2013 and 2020, it became exclusively this, again, flagship store area that, I think they were all loss leaders. I don't think they actually made a profit because the rent was so exorbitant, but it was like a thing where tourists could go.
Just to like
and you
be
could,
there.
Yeah, it's as much an advertising thing. They had a Nike store
Yeah.
immediately across from us that was like a 5-floor
I
cathedral
think it was
to
9
Nike.
floors.
Was it 9 floors?
I think that store is 9 floors.
You're right. I think that the top floors were inaccessible to the
Oh.
general public, but yeah. So that's the jacket. I like it a lot.
It's gone through a lot.
Yeah, recently there was some stains all over the back of it, and the dry cleaners miraculously were able to clean it, so I was pretty happy about
I
that.
thought I cleaned it.
You cleaned it once, and then it got
No.
dirty again. There was like red on it.
The dry cleaner.
So it got fake blood on it at one point, and that
It did.
that
that
was
was
gone.
what I got out.
Yeah.
Okay.
With a brush, like a toothbrush.
Yeah.
And then this shirt is from Houghton Lake in Michigan, which is, and Michiganders can correct me the entire time I'm describing this shirt. It is the biggest non-Great Lake in the state. If you're looking at the mitten, I'm pretty sure it's like right here somewhere, like center mitten.
That looks right to me.
Yeah, and one day we were there. We went with a bunch of friends, some of whom may be watching right now, on a trip to Michigan, like 10 days, I guess, was it?
I think it was 10 days.
Across the state for a wedding and visiting all sorts of other locations. And the day that we were in Houghton Lake, we went thrifting, myself, Jessi, and Tom Wolfson. And I'll wait for the train again.
I thought it would be nice to stand over here because it's like we can see the train and it's nice, but it's also loud.
The trains were a lot less frequent yesterday when I came by to check it out. And also we probably could talk through it, but you know.
I don't know.
I don't know. So yeah, we got the thrifting scene in Houghton Lake was pretty awesome because it's, I guess there's an elderly population there, and also there's nobody that's looking for the types of things that we would be looking for.
Yeah.
So we got this shirt. It was very affordable.
Do you remember where that was from? Which store?
I think it was one of the big where we saw all the T-shirts. I don't know, is that just a Salvation Army or a Goodwill?
Oh.
It was like a big box, either Goodwill or Salvation Army, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was, it was a matter of $4 or $5. There is at least one other piece that made its way into the 2020 Total Clarity collection that you'll see at some point from that trip. So that was really cool. And these pants, I don't really remember where I got these pants. It could have been, it's pretty rare that I find pants at a thrift store. I did manage to find a bunch for the 2020 Total Clarity project, but this is more like a general wear, and it's hard to find pants that are clean and the appropriate size and interesting at thrift stores.
For men.
For men, yeah. So I honestly don't recall where I get these, but I have a couple of pair in this color. I tend to like this color for pants. So.
Nice pant color.
Yeah. And then the shoes are the shoes that I was wearing last week. I don't have as much variety of shoes as Jessi does. I probably could have worn, I have shoes that I could wear with this, but chose to wear this instead.
No, those are good. I thought about wearing my sneakers too, but I thought that didn't feel right with this outfit.
Yeah. Well, so that covers the outfit side of things.
I think so.
Should we talk more about the cemetery?
Yeah, can I tell you a little bit about the cemetery?
Yeah.
This particular cemetery? Let me get my book again. Okay. So, we already know that it's called the Most Holy Trinity Cemetery.
Right.
So this cemetery was established in 1851 by the German Catholic congregation at Most Holy Trinity Church in Williamsburg, and that church was established in 1841. So for 10 years, they actually had a cemetery in their backyard at the church. But then they wanted to build a school, so they decided to move. They only had there weren't that many graves yet, so they moved them out here, and that actually it was 4 years after that Rural Cemetery Act was passed. And that church actually still exists. It's on Montrose between Manhattan and Graham, so it's 2.7 miles away from here.
Huh.
But the cemetery now, let's see, So they established it in 1851, and until 1981, it was owned by that church, and that was directly where like their people would go to rest. But in 1981, this cemetery, I don't know if it was like bought but now at this point, like from then, it's been under the control of the Catholic cemeteries of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Brooklyn, which has a main office at St. John's.
Oh, okay.
So I think, and I didn't like go too deep into this, but I think they actually like control a lot of the cemeteries in this area.
Yeah.
At least, like from there to here, which is like at least 5 or 6.
By St. John's, you're referring to the St. John's Cemetery in Middle Village.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, on Metropolitan.
Yes.
And so.
Which I have family buried there, because
Yeah, and that's why it was. Last night when I was doing the research, I went, oh wow, and that's why I went, oh wow. I thought that was kind of nice. And then so that's just the history of like who owns this cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
But part of what makes this cemetery so unique that we've already kind of noticed and pointed out, right, is that at least with each other, I don't know if we've said it to the camera people, but the graves are all like kind of like rusty and like falling over, and like it like gives you this feeling that it's like pretty unkept, but like with the graves themselves, but like the lawn is nicely manicured, and there's like not, I know there is like one piece of trash in the shot, but there's like the only piece of trash that I've seen. I think it's because it's near the train tracks actually.
right.
But for the most part, like it's like well kept, but then you look at the graves and you're like, why are they like that? And it's kind of charming. Like whenever I do go for a run through here, I always think like looking at them is really nice, and they're like the fact that they're all kind of broken is really beautiful. And they're old, but so the reason for them all being mostly metal is because at that church, the Most Holy Trinity Church, they had in their doctrine that when people were buried, there was a democratic equality of the grave. So it didn't matter how much money you had, you would get the same thing.
Oh, wow.
So you'd either get a wooden marker, or most of them are tin.
Yeah.
And there also used to be a lot of copper markers in here, but those have since been stolen.
Oh.
Assuming for like scrap metal.
Yeah.
And a lot of the wooden, we're actually standing in front of a wooden one, which is ironic, but a lot of the wooden ones have, I guess, decomposed since 1841 or 1851. But the fact that they made these out of like tin and copper and wood, which all of the, like those are really soft metals, and then wood is obviously going to decompose. I wonder like what the thought process was about longevity when people were being buried at that time.
Right.
I don't know. That wasn't something I like dove into last night or know anything about prior to this, but it just makes me wonder that. So that's like the main thing I wanted to talk about, but there's also just a fact about this cemetery. I know how many graves are here. Do you want to give a guess?
Well, there's a fence. I don't know if you count the ones on the other side of the fence.
No, I don't think so, because the other side of the fence is evergreen.
No. 562.
Much more.
2,000.
Much more.
6,000.
Much more. I was also very surprised.
12,000.
Almost double. 25,000 graves.
Wow.
In this cemetery. Like, I don't...
Huh.
We'll have to count while we go around.
That plot has, that one stone has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Does that count? As
yeah,
6?
yeah. I think it's like, that's the number of people that have been buried here.
I see.
Yeah. Not grave, because that would be grave markers.
Yeah.
I believe the 25,000 graves speaks to how many people are actually in here.
Yeah.
But I thought that was crazy. It like doesn't feel that big.
No.
That seems like a really big number.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And then the last thing I want to talk about, because I think this might be a fun scavenger hunt for us and for 360 people. I read an article from the Brooklyn Daily Eagle from 1890.
Nice.
And it mentions that at the time, almost all of the stones were like massive. It's strange because they're all like this low quality material to make everyone to have the democratic equality of the grave.
Right.
But then in this article, it mentions that almost all of the stones were gilded with like these crazy decorations, that almost every single one of them had either one or all three of the following items: a gilded crucifix, a winged head of cherub, and or a lamb. Winged head of cherub sounds funny. It's just like a cherub with wings on his head. Sure. Which still sounds funny. Yeah.
Well, I guess
Anyway.
we'll say goodbye for now. I don't really know if there's going to be footage walking through over what we already talked about, or if it's going to come after this. I guess you'll know when you see if there's 5 more minutes of this video left or not. But in the meantime, I hope you're getting on with your inside quarantine time. I hope everybody's safe and healthy that you know. And yeah, please subscribe for more of these New York 360 videos. I think that's what we're going to call it. We'll see. We're workshopping the idea.
Name and work.
New York 360. If you like it, let us know in the comments so that we can continue calling it that. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll either see you after we stop talking right now, or we'll see you next week.
Agreed.
Say goodbye.
Agreed. Bye.